somebody has asked, can they change their tourist visa to a student visa?
A visitor visa means that you're going to a particular country to visit, to understand. You can take up a 3-month course. Every country allows you to take a short-term course on a visitor visa.
The chances of visa rejection are higher for a married female applying for a student visa. Is this correct?
Hello aspirants. Today I am talking to someone who has been a banker, an IELTS certified trainer, an ex-visa officer with the New Zealand High Commission and an official with the Australian High Commission. Sheenu Kathuria is now helping students who want to study abroad. In today's episode, she is going to help us plan for post-study work visas, and later I'll request her to answer some questions that aspirants have asked us. So let's start. I love data. It resolves misinformation. Let's talk to experts, analyze news, and smartly plan your study abroad journey. Hello aspirants, welcome to Videshi Chai.
Hi Sheenu.
Hi Jainesh, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for making time for Videshi Chai. We really appreciate it.
Most welcome.
Could you maybe take a couple of minutes and introduce about yourself to our viewers so that they know the interesting journey that you've had so far?
Sure. So, hello everyone, and I'm Sheenu Kathuria. I'm the founder and CEO at EduNation Consultants. We are a young organization. We provide end-to-end services for students who intend to go overseas. Services from counseling to helping them with shortlisting options, applying to universities, education loan services with the help of Gandhan and Videshi Chai, and of course, visa services. Before this, we are a young organization. When I say this, we are about 3.5 years in the business, precisely. Prior to this, I was with the immigration sector. And I've changed about 5 industries and decided to start my own venture and support students with their overseas education journey. So that's a bit in brief about me.
Now you have a unique insight into the workings at New Zealand as well as the Australian embassies.
Yes.
Right, and having worked there.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of movement, changes in visa regulations, especially in Australia.
Yes.
So, what can you just summarize the recent changes for our viewers? What's the current standing? And maybe focus more on Australia, but touch upon New Zealand as well.
Sure.
What's happening there, and how should students be prepared?
Sure, absolutely. So, first of all, Jainesh, I'd like to share that these changes were inevitable. For a reason, post-COVID, the volume and the quantum of number of the applications that are being processed across countries, they have increased by leaps.
Yeah.
And when anything spurts, quality does get jeopardized, and it is bound to be because there are many facilitators who are working on applications for visa, and everybody may not be able to follow a certain common level of standardization. So while in 2020, countries started being liberal when it comes to making sure that students are able to enter after the COVID lockdown period started to ease. Australia was one of the prime countries. So while New Zealand was very strict, they did not open doors to international students till about 2022. But Australia and the UK, if I may say, they started onboarding and agreeing for visa applications and admissions. But what happened was, since they eased the policies, a lot of students and a lot of applications went through, of course. And in between, there was absolute compromise on quality of applications. So what had happened now, with the inflow of students in the country, the countries were not able to balance in terms of accommodation, in terms of jobs, and of course making sure that quality students are sent to the right set of universities. So this particular regulation that has now been announced, that is being announced across countries, was kind of that I could see. And in a way, I would say for consultants who are really focusing on quality and making sure that everything is seamless for students, this is a very good move. Now, talking about the moves that have come into picture, the first thing is that they are capping the number of applications that the countries would be accepting from the coming year. And when I say this, I'm talking about countries like Canada. Then Australia has also announced a cap. New Zealand will definitely go slow with the number of admissions, and they would be very selective in the criteria. So the criteria has become strict, of course. Earlier, if you any candidate has had a refusal, say a visitor visa refusal or a study visa refusal, you were still allowed to apply for a study visa in Australia. But now, if you have any sort of refusals, you will not be allowed to apply for a visa again. So this is one of the most recent updates. A lot of students and parents and even candidates, they don't know about it. What you could do is instead you could look at other countries, but you cannot apply to Australia if you've had a refusal in the recent times. So that's one update that we need to know. One of the major updates, and this is for primarily for Australia and New Zealand, the financial assessment. So earlier there was a certain sort of, I would say, leverage wherein if your funds are not a certain duration old but rest of the things are fine, they will still be able to look at the GTE eligibility, which is a genuine temporary entrant eligibility for Australia. They've renamed it to GS, but now they are very clear that if we are asking for a 3 months aging funds eligibility, we will stick to it. They've also introduced interviews in a lot of scenarios in universities to make sure that the students are aware of the course, they're aware of the funding, how they are funding the education, and the reasons for returning. So it's becoming stricter. And it is not going to be any better in terms of less strictness in the next at least 1 to 2 years. Nonetheless, my suggestion would be, do not get taken aback by this, because this is only for our betterment. Because if we reach a university and we see that everything is exorbitant, accommodation is high, it does not suffice the purpose. We may end up returning. So the country is in a way safeguarding its interest and the students' interest also, thereby making sure that quality reaches them. So these reforms were required, and they will take some time to stabilize, and people are accepting it. The main thing is, us as consultants, we try our best to make them aware that this is for their betterment and it's not against them precisely. So these are the major changes that have happened.
Makes sense. And very informative. And from a practical viewpoint, so students, when you say quality, should the students then aim for higher ranked universities or more employment linked courses? So from a genuine student, as you mentioned, besides financials, from a target course point of view, from preparing their resume viewpoint, what action can students today take so that their odds of getting a US or an Australian student visa or a New Zealand student visa increase?
Very, very good and a valid question. For a reason, we come across these questions and queries. This is a prime one. Profile alignment. So why I say so? Candidates may come asking, I want to take up a course with which I may get a permanent residence sooner or faster. You must have seen these questions doing the round. But that is not how it will work. It may have worked in the past, maybe 5, 7, 8 years down the before, but it will not work anymore. So the foremost thing that is important is, what is it that you have done so far from an education perspective, and then look at programs. So how we work in our offices, we look at faculty accreditations more than the university rankings. Of course, that is also a very important criteria, but we look at faculty accreditations, and then we align the courses on the basis of the student's profile. So that's the nucleus. And then university rankings, yes, we cannot go to any college today. That's not the criteria anymore. Canada has shunned a lot of public colleges, a lot of private colleges already. And if students end up applying thinking that I'm getting an easy admission, they will not get a visa. So is the case with Australia. So we should focus on, if not everybody is able to go to the group of 8 universities because the fee structure is high, we should at least look at good universities which have a decent ranking, which have the courses available as per the student's profile. So 2 things which are important is ranking, faculty accreditation, and the student's profile. These need to align. It cannot be just because I should get a permanent residence or which one will fetch me more jobs. See, if your profile aligns to the program that you're applying to, you end up getting a confirmation of enrollment. Of course, your visa chances are higher. Then once you're in the country, whether you're going for a bachelor's, you get about 3 to 4 years to study. Then you get 3 to 4 years of post-study work permit. That's enough time for you to be able to land a job. So you're not returning immediately. So is the case with masters. The master's study in Australia is for 2 years, and you get a post-study work permit of up to 4 years again. I think that's good enough time for any industry-centric student to be able to land a job.
Yeah.
So you should not focus, I should get to nursing because that's getting me a good permanent residence or an IT. No. Please focus on your profile and then apply accordingly. Your chances of getting good jobs will automatically fall in place. So that's the suggestion that we give to all our candidates.
Yeah. That's a very good takeaway. Focus on improving your profile and alignment. Yeah.
Yes, that's important, and that's the key, I feel. Has always been in counseling. Yes, so they can, I feel there cannot be not just like one solution works for all. It cannot be. You cannot bracket it that everybody goes for a BBA or everybody goes for an MSc in IT. It cannot be. Every student's profile is unique, so that needs to be focused upon.
It also leads to better career outcomes insofar as you perform better in the course that you're better aligned with.
Yes. See, we need to understand that Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, and the UK, these are multi-industry countries. They're not focused on a particular industry or a vertical. So eventually, whatever programs that we are applying for, there are jobs. One thing that is important is how we are approaching those. After we study, we need to actually align. It cannot be served on a platter. So for that, a good education, a genuine way of going, and then the path automatically forms itself. Yes. So that's important.
Shiv, next I'd like to ask you some questions that some of our viewers have sent to us.
Okay.
Specifically around going for higher education in Australia and New Zealand.
Right.
And also queries around work visas and student visas in these destinations.
Okay.
So I have this list here. The first question for me is, what would be a right time to file for visa for February 2025 intake?
February 2025, we should have already started. So generally, once the September intake gets over, earlier it used to be that the intake for February or March would open in about a month after that, say October end. But generally, it's a cyclical process. However, keeping in mind the number of applications that are being put through and the timelines, also considering that December is always a lean month. So the universities go for a break and everything is closed from the 18th of December till the 4th of January, precisely, if you ask me. So what we do, we had already started working on applications for Jan and Feb intake in September. So making sure that the profiles are in place. And then, of course, there will be some universities and schools in India that will not provide a mark sheet or a predicted score. So that keeps on happening. But we start working on the profile towards September, October, and we submit the applications by in between mid-October to end of October. Because of course, universities will need some time for assessments. The endeavor is to be able to secure offer letters before the winter break, because visa will again take about 4 to 6 weeks. So high commissions remain open. They just close for about a week, but universities close for 3 weeks. So we try to match up the timelines and we try securing offer letters so that then we are done with the financial and all the process, and then we move to visa stages. So to avoid the last minute panic, especially for Feb and March intake, I would say if you are planning for that, and that's mostly for masters. Bachelor students, they go for a fall intake. So Feb and March, which would mostly be for people who are going for a PG study, start sooner. Sooner is better. You would not be in any haste. And there are students who are working and who plan to go for the master's study. If you want to serve your notice period and all of that, it can be planned properly. Rather than contacting in November and wanting to go in February, that'll be really, really hasty. We can do it, but then the choices will be less. And we would not want to compromise on that. Again, coming to the point that visa chances need to be higher and you ultimately want to reach there. So yes, end of September you should begin.
And just in case you are late, dear viewers, then the next intake is always there.
It's just about a couple of months from March to June, because in Australia and New Zealand, next intake is July. So that's the precise fall intake. So it's not too far. I would always, and I'd say that, you're right, I recommend rather than just going for any institution, it's better to wait for 2 more months. You're not too far from the next intake, and take a proper organized call. So yes, that's a better move.
Makes a ton of sense to me.
Yes.
Next question is very interesting. So somebody has asked, can they change their tourist visa to a student visa? I think change is not the right word, but
absolutely not. So I have been getting these queries. See, and in fact, we get these queries because there is a word in the market that, okay, you can convert. You can convert from a visitor to a work permit. We need to understand the definitions of the 2 visa categories. A visitor visa means that you're going to a particular country to visit, to understand, you can take up a 3-month course. Every country allows you to take a short-term course on a visitor visa, but a visitor visa means you cannot apply for jobs. So even if you feel that, look, I'm not working, but at least I can search for jobs, no, you cannot. It's not legal. So how will you convert from a visitor to work? So what you need to do instead, if somebody, if a friend of mine sitting in Canada says, look, come to Canada and I'll give you a job. So we had a friendly talk, but on the basis of that, I cannot take up a visitor visa and join him or her. I will need to follow a strategized approach. I'll be in India or I'll come back to India. I'll ask my friend or whosoever I know, my contact, to share an offer letter to me, and I'll apply for my work permit from India. So to answer to this question, and repeatedly, we cannot convert a visitor visa to a work permit, to a work visa for any country. It's not legal, it's not right. Visitor visa means you're going for some time, want to take a look at the beauty of the country, spend some time with your family and friends. If you want to take up a short-term course, you can. Like countries like Canada and US, they give you a 10-year validity. So you can stay up to 6 months, take up a 3-month course, and that's it. You cannot reach out to recruiters and employers, I want to apply and float your CV. You cannot do that. Absolutely not.
And to the students asking this question, perhaps the advice should be that in addition to what you've mentioned, if you have taken a tourist visa to go and visit the universities, to take a look at the facilities, it shows the level of seriousness when you're applying to your student visa, for your student visa. So it could be a stepping stone.
Yes, that can be done. So a lot of times, if you already hold a visitor visa. So this year we had, this is for the US, we had applied for a couple of students who held a B1, B2. Because as I said, the validity is longer. So there is a possibility students already hold a Canada visitor visa or a US visitor. You can go, you can take get an idea around universities. That you could do the window shopping. But even on a visitor visa, you cannot apply for a study visa too. You cannot enroll for a program. So the university will not allow you to enroll for, you come back, a long-term program, you come back and then you start with your enrollment process. But of course, you can go and take an idea around the program, the faculty as a visitor that, look, I'm thinking of doing this, but you cannot do anything on paper. But that's a good idea. Students can survey. They can do that, yes. Prospective students.
So the next question that I have is, there's a student who is saying that they have a gap in their education. So how does a gap in education impact the students' ability to apply for programs in generally all the top countries, I would say? Let's take examples of, I don't think the answer will change by destination. This question is more about Australia, but I believe the answer would be applicable in general to all universities.
Few differences, not much, but I will start with Australia since we are discussing more about Australia, and I'll talk about other countries. So if a student has a study gap after grade 12, so there are many students who decide to appear for some entrances or take a study gap just generally, especially in tier 2 cities, it's quite normal. Australia will not take you. So after grade 12, if there is a study gap of 1 year, more than 1 year, 1 year is acceptable, wherein we can bridge and say that I was preparing for my international education, I was preparing for IELTS or PTE. If it is more than 1 year, you will not be accepted. What that 1 year means for understanding of our Indian pattern of study. So I take my final exams in the month of February 2025. The maximum that the university will accept would be February to March 2026 for the applications to be put through for a fall intake 2026, not later than that. And that too is subject to a couple of universities, because not all universities are accepting applications from many other states in India. So that's also one thing. So that's Australia for us, for UG. Now, all other countries, they're okay. New Zealand is also slightly strict, but if we are able to validate why we took that gap, medical reasons, appearing from some entrance, they will be able to accept and acknowledge. It has to be reputed, and they need to be valid documentations. Canada is fine with the gap, but we need to again, share documents. For a postgraduate study, because a lot of students in India, and after they complete their bachelor's, they start working to support families and take over responsibilities. Most of the countries accept a study gap after your bachelor's for up to 8 years. Up to 8 years. Now, it could be between 1 year to 8 years, and within this range, the number of universities will get filtered. So there may be a top university or maybe a top 100, one of the top 100 universities, they may not want to take a study gap more than 2 years. So that's selective, but the overall thing is up to 8 years, you will get an acceptance in many universities. Beyond that, we have applied for Canada visas for matured students who have a study gap of about 13 to 14 years. Those are like people, those are people who have families, young children, and we've applied for visas as a family for the student, the dependent open work permit holder, and the child's visa. There has to be absolute strength in the profile. So the profiles that we're talking about were somebody working with Deloitte at a senior position and is now wanting to upgrade their profile and credentials. So there has to be validation. It cannot be anybody who's, no, I was working with a private firm or I was working here and now I want to study all of a sudden, because the intent is clear, you're not going for studies. You're just going to move. So, and we've been able to get some good visas, but any gap more than 8 years has to have extremely good credentials and a good case to show that yes, they actually mean to study to up their game and get better in their career. Otherwise, a decent gap between 1 to 8 years is acceptable with proper validations and documentation. What was the gap all about? We need to see continuity. And the gap cannot just be a simple statement in a statement of purpose that I did not do anything or I was traveling. No, you have to validate it. So yes, certainly for Australia, after 12th, not more than 1 year. You cannot be applying for it. They won't take your application. The universities will not accept. Yes. So
one thing then the viewers need to be a bit careful about is that there's a pattern in India that people take a drop of 1 to 2 years for their college entrance. Test preparation that will basically invalidate them for at least the Australia visa.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Australia will not take. If somebody is aiming at applying for Australia, we need to be aware of this. So that's what, when we conduct workshops and interactions in schools, especially for students of grade 10 and 11, that's a part of the profile building activity. We educate the parents and the students that you have to plan. So there are parents who may want their child to get into an IIT or get into engineering, and it's okay, or maybe civil services, UPSC exams. But if the goal is that we may want to look at overseas study also, these things are very important, at least till now, because this is the ongoing policy which has been prevalent for quite some time now. So, and that's important. See, and the reason again was students from Punjab, students from Gujarat, students from Haryana, what general practices that were being followed were, you complete your grade 12 and you may just want to apply for a diploma. Just to be facilitating your travel. Earlier diplomas were accepted even in Australia apart from Canada. Nothing of that sort is happening. Everything is filtered. So you can only apply for degree courses in Australia. Canada still has diplomas, but gaps after 12th need to be strong, need to be strongly validated in Canada too. Yes.
Shiv, the next question is, can dependents travel with the students to Australia?
Dependent spouse?
Spouse, family members?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Not if a student is applying for undergrad study. So in India, we have early marriage provisions, and there are people who do get married at the age of 18 and 19. So students who may be wanting to apply for a UG study and they want to take their spouses along with them, none of the countries will allow for them to go to take their dependent spouse on while they are on a UG study, undergrad. Postgraduate students are welcome to apply for dependent spouses open work permits, and that is pretty much acceptable in all the countries. Australia also provides that acceptance now. UK is one of the countries which has become strict on that. So they have capped that dependents will not be allowed to apply for a spouse work permit. This is from the current year.
Right.
So the student can go, they can invite their partners on a visitor visa. It cannot be converted to an open work permit, of course. The UK has taken this step that dependents will not be allowed to go on a work permit for a reason. It was exponentially high in terms of dependent open work permit applications the year was like really. So I think they were not able to accommodate where will the jobs be. So in a way it's good for the applicants. They need to wait, they need to take some time, and otherwise PG postgraduate students are most welcome to take the dependent spouses with them, kids are allowed to go. But because for a reason, 7 to 10 years of age, kids will be going on a visitor visa. And after that, they would be going on a study visa because they would ultimately be enrolling in a school. So till about 7 years, kids are good to go on a visitor visa with either parent. The other parent will have to give a consent. So kids can go with the parent.
Got it. The last viewer question that we have comes from somebody who is a female and married, and they've asked that are the chances of, apparently they've heard that the chances of visa rejection are higher for a married female applying for a student visa. Is this correct?
No, not completely. In fact, I would say no, it is not, because a success or a failure of visa is not gender bound in any country. So I can understand why this is coming from, because women in India generally take a career break after getting married or having a child. So they tend to take that break to look after the house or to look after the baby. So I have come across applicants, female applicants, with an apprehension that do you think there's a higher risk? See, this is a gradual process, and every country is aware of how India operates. The only thing is, in that fear, we tend to fumble. You know what we do now? Generally, we would show some experience certificates. Let me just bridge the gap. Let me show an experience certificate. Let me show an NGO certificate. Don't do that. Show that you were on maternity. Show that you got married. Share your marriage certificates. Share that you were traveling, spending some time to get to know the family. It will never be taken against. Again, what matters is your education that you've completed in India. For a student who's gotten married right after grade 12, it may be a challenge. And that could be a challenge for a male applicant as well. So a visa success or a failure is not gender bound in any country. So women do not need to feel apprehensive or taken aback that, I have a study gap, or I may have a high visa rejection chance because of the fact that I took a gap or I did not study further, or no. If you're able to validate, I think we did that for 2 toddlers. So this was in 2022. The parents were 37 and 38. The woman had not worked for 8 years. She went on a study visa. So this is in one of the top universities in Canada, and she went for a geospatial study, very, very bespoke and a specialist program. And I was very clear, of course I couldn't have guaranteed a visa being a consultant, but I knew that she will get a visa because her credentials were strong before from the time that she had gotten married till that time, and in between she continued to upgrade her skill set by doing some certifications, thereby managing the child also. So for 3 years she was at home managing her child, taking looking after the house and everything, and she kind of continued to do her certifications off and on. We bridged it for 8 years completely, and without her having to be on any company's payroll. And they're applying for a permanent residence in some time now on the basis of the husband's work permit. So these things work. It's just that you need to have conviction, get the right guidance, very, very important. Do not hold yourself, just show, and just show everything that you have, and then we would be in a better position to guide properly. So let the women know that it's not gender bound. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Right. So I have a couple more questions from my side. So you mentioned that there's a cap in Australia, and we've read in the news as well that compared to 2024 levels, 2023 levels, the cap would be almost halving the number of students that came to Australia. But the impact is lower on master's and bachelor's degree courses, but more on vocational courses. Is that the right picture?
Australia now does not accept applications for visa for diploma programs anymore. It's only Canada. Canada, in fact, is the only country now, and New Zealand has diploma programs that they allow, but then there is a level. So in New Zealand, how it works is, there are levels from level 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 being the highest, which is a master's and PhD. So if your level of study equates to those levels, 4, 5, 6 being undergrad, 7 and above is postgrad and PhD. So New Zealand is also flexible, but the levels are very clear. If there is a study in English teaching, it does not come under a level. You will not be eligible to apply for a visa. It has to be in that green list. It's called the green list, precisely. Australia does not entertain any diplomas. Canada is the only country broadly that accepts applications for undergrad diplomas for 2 years, and there are good colleges. But now what we need to see is how many colleges have been shelved. There were, and no universities, of course. There were public colleges and private colleges who were accepting diploma applications. A lot have been, told not to work at all or not to operate. So that is another thing that needs to be taken. Otherwise, only degree programs across any country.
So in effect, students who were anyways planning to go for a master's degree program or a bachelor's degree program to Australia, they should not worry.
They should not worry. They should plan properly. See, the only thing is, if the choice of university and program is fine, they should not worry either way. But now it's like, since there is a number, so it'll be first come, first serve, of course, because for one particular seat, there may be 100 students. And out of those, 50 may be very good in terms of credentials. From those 50, which one applied sooner? So as we were talking about planning, so you have to start planning better and strategically and rather sooner to be able to secure your seat, get your scholarships, be able to apply for your visa. So now the game is more about how soon are you beginning with your application, not the last minute changes, because we don't know till how long are they going to maintain the capping. At least for the coming year, it's right there, they've published it. So start sooner, and don't worry if your profile is good, if the choice of university and profile is, the courses is good, we can be fine with it. Yes, but start sooner.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's the game, This is right now the need of the hour.
And you mentioned caps. So Canada has allocated the caps by provinces.
Yes.
Is there something similar in Australia, or is it more of a national level cap?
It's a national level cap. It's not region wise. So for a reason, the Australian classification of group of 8 universities is spread across all all states. So there's a University of Western Australia, then there's a University of New South Wales, University of Melbourne. So they are divided amongst states. So they cannot give one province a preference and the other one may not be preferred. Vis-a-vis, if we talk about Canada, Canada is divided against economic zones, if I talk about, and certain which are agriculture bound. So Prince Edward Island or Nova Scotia, they do not have many national universities. So that's why what they're doing is they're facilitating provincial choices, like you apply through Ontario, or you apply, there are universities which have been given a higher bandwidth in Ontario because Ontario has some of the major universities, University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, then British Columbia, they have a UBC, they have Vancouver Island University, so they may be given more application assignments in terms of numbers assigned to them because students apply, but less students apply to a Prince Edward Island or a New Brunswick, so they would be given a less number in terms of quota, but that's not the case in Australia. It has to be evenly divided. So it's not, that this one has more or this one has less. It's just that, trust me, it's about planning. You can choose to apply to any of the group of 8 or any university in Australia. Start early. I'm repeating it because this is really, really needed.
It's worth repeating.
Yeah, it is worth repeating. Yes.
Last question from my side, Shenu, is about tell us about the student that you felt came from what would be considered from lower strata of the society from an income level point of view, what you would maybe call an underdog because traditionally they don't fit the right criteria, but then you saw them go to their desired program and succeed in life. Any story like that?
So there was this student. So the student started working right after his graduation. So we sent him for a postgraduate program to support the family. Very, very diligent student, I would say. Very diligent, very consistent. So to support the family, he started working with a travel firm, of course, and he had completed his studies in commerce and accounts, and just like in India, you just take up a job, whatever job you have. So he just started working with the travel firm, but he was very, very sure that he wants to get into actuary and cost accounting. So he was quite sure, and finances were a problem. So they had a small property in one of the cities, and we took about 2 years to work on that profile because initially the finances were not happening. The father's health, that depleted over the due course. So we dropped one intake and we decided to send the student in the next intake. The student went in 2022 again. So we started COVID times. So that was the time, but he was so consistent and in talks with us, ma'am, I really want to go. So that was the kind of urge which motivated me to really work on that student's profile. So what he did, so he followed suit the way I instructed him. I said, see, what you would need to do is you will need to move from the travel company and get into an organization where we can build on your profile around your programs. He did that. He worked for 8 months. We waited. He saved up on his salary. And then we told them how to go about, transfer these funds to your father's account. So that was acceptable because aging is not required in Canada. And then we applied for an education loan for him. So, but then that level of seriousness motivates us to kind of support the student the right way. So that is something that I can remember. And the father was a farmer. So they were from an agricultural background. So what we had was J forms, some receipts, some vouchers to show their income. And the good part was the property that they had was a residential registered property. So with that, we were able to avail some loan. And I would say the sad and the happy part was the mother gave away all the jewelry. But everything aligned because the student's future and his goal was very, very clear. Today he's in his second year, completing his second year of masters. So I think he should be just about to graduate, and then he's moving ahead and he keeps updating us, and it's really a matter of pride to see the family is very happy, and of course the gold will come back eventually. The gold is the way he's learning, that's a return on investment. So that's one, and we see a lot of such things. The main thing is such students, unfortunately a majority of such students want to go out of desperation. This student wanted to go out of a horizon on his mind. That, look, I want to get into cost accounting. I want to do this, and then I want to create my career ahead and all. His vision was clear. It was not out of desperation to support the family and just move to any country. So that is why it aligned. So, and many a time students come, ma'am, bas bhej do. That should not be the idea. Then we may not be in a position to support the best way accordingly. So that was one incident that I remember in a case. So we were all motivated to support that student, and he's there in Canada now. He's doing well and supporting the family. He worked 2 jobs despite studying, and his scores were very, very good. He maintained his GPA, and he made sure that his assignments and dissertations were all very good. He got good accolades from the professors, but he did 2 jobs because he was not getting the required part-time hours. But to make sure that he sends money home, he worked 2 jobs initially. Now he is in a full-time job because now is the time when his post-study work permit has begun. Now he's doing pretty well for himself. So I wish him all the best again.
Wonderful to hear that story.
Thank you. But he deserves it. That student deserves it,
Right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for having me, really.
It was a pleasure. And
likewise. Thank you for me. And it was the same for me, I would say.
The insights that you've given today are going to be super helpful for our viewers, I'm sure.
I hope. And these are some important things in that, as I say, in that rush to be following the bandwagon, we do take hasty calls, but it's always a good idea to go in a strategic manner. So the best way is to talk, take guidance, have these talks so that we can provide whatever we know as best.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Yes.
Thanks again. And
most welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please follow Videshi Chai, and thank you so much again, Jainesh, for having me here. Thank you.
Did you enjoy this conversation with Shinu? I hope it resolved some of your queries. If you have any other questions, share them with me in the comments. I will definitely try to answer them in the future videos. Stay tuned for the next podcast episode with another guest. Don't forget to subscribe to Videshi Chai to get notified about the next video.